All right, welcome back into Cherry Picking. A little bit of a different look here today. Not the OwnersBox HQ this week, but I am very excited to be joined by my guest here, Steven Psihogios. Steven is a producer over at NorthStar Bets, one of the new sportsbooks in Ontario here, and also a former Yahoo Fantasy Hockey guru. So you guys are in for a treat here as we go through one player to add and one player to drop. Steve, how has the NHL season treated you so far?
From a betting perspective, I could be doing better. I will say that. You know, last night we hit the over in the Leafs game, though, against the Ducks. Nice combination of Leafs collapse and an over hitting. So did not expect it entering the third, but was very happy to do that. In fantasy hockey, I'm doing really well. So last year was a rebuilding year in my one league, and that team's doing well in a keeper league. So that's my main team, and it's a rolling through the first few weeks.
Great. Yeah, good to hear. Yeah, I was luckily on the Ducks last night, actually. I was just kind of banking on the fact that the Leafs were mailing in this whole Western Conference road trip at the end of it. And I cashed in on it, so we were lucky. But let's get into some fantasy hockey here. So like I mentioned, we'll go through both one player that we are looking to add this week for sure, and then one player that we're looking to drop. Week 4 of fantasy hockey, so it's getting about that time where players are viable to drop. You know, there's a big enough sample size. So I think it's important to get into those players first, Steve. Who's the guy that you're looking to drop, a guy that you're kind of sick and tired with, that's maybe you were high on the preseason and is just really isn't coming up to what we expected?
Well, this is someone who for a couple of years we've been waiting for the dip to finally happen, and it's Andrew Mangiapane. You look the last 2 seasons, 19.2% shooting percentage, only 0.1% below Leon Draisaitl, one of the NHL's best goal scorers. So you wonder, okay, Mangiapane keeps scoring. When's this going to stop? And it looks like we're starting to see that. He's only got 2 goals and 4 points through the first 7 games. He's not playing on the Flames' top line or their first power play unit. So you really need that production because he's an okay auxiliary producer when you're talking about hits and block shots. But if he's not giving you the goals, it's hard to justify keeping him around. And if his shooting percentage undergoes any kind of correction this season, which it looks like it is, it's still pretty high at 13%, but you're just not getting the goals. And that Flames offense as a whole really hasn't been as high scoring as maybe some people thought to open the year.
Yeah, this Flames team has been really weird. We've seen some great production from Kadri, but guys like Lindholm and even Huberdeau have really kind of been disappointing. Mackenzie Weegar as well in terms of fantasy. He's yet to score a goal. I think he only has like a couple assists at this point as well. So this whole Flames team, we really haven't seen a ton of production from. Are you seeing any real reason why this team's kind of been slow this year? Or is it Daryl Sutter effect starting to hit this whole team as a whole?
It could be a combination of Daryl Sutter implementing a system and also the fact that he's implementing that system on a bunch of new players as well. Like the overhaul that happened this offseason, while they brought in great players, they still lost great players as well. So that's important to keep in mind. It looked like Weegar was kind of going to avoid that. His first game with the Flames was electric, and he's just kind of been slow ever since. I think it's one of those things when we look at them midway through the season, we'll start to see an uptick and then they'll be trending in the right direction. But it takes time when you just put a bunch of new guys together. Agreed.
Yeah. So one guy that I'm looking to drop, and for dynasty leagues, maybe you got to look at it in a different light, but I've been a little disappointed in Owen Power this year. And with how heavily he's rostered, I think he's just a waste of a roster spot at this point, especially in season by season leagues. Look, I know he's young, but the most concerning part about Power is how much ice time he's getting and the lack of production. His share of possible ice time on this Buffalo team is around 38. Only Rasmus Dahlin has higher, and he's playing almost 23 minutes per game. He's put up just 2 assists, which came in the same game, actually. He has no goals, 0 power play points, and just 6 shots on goal so far. His really only addition to your fantasy team right now is block shots. I think he has about 12, but his points per 60 minutes is less than 1. It's 0.65. That's worst on this Buffalo Sabres team. Shooting percentage, obviously very low, and his volume, 6 shots on goal and only 12 actual attempts in 8 games. His on-ice goals percentage is also 47, which is not good, even for a D-man. You know, you're looking for a guy who has over 50 for sure. I also think Buffalo is playing a little bit better, maybe like a week and a half ago, than they will the rest of the season, a little bit overperforming. So even the goalies as well. So I think when the goalies come down to earth a little bit, I think it'll make the only thing it'll really affect is his plus minus. I think it'll make it a little bit worse. Right now he's sitting at about even. But like I said, if he is young and in a dynasty league, you got to look at it a little bit of different light. But guys who I'd maybe even pick up over him right now, looking at who's available on the waiver wire. Braden McNabb's been pretty solid for Vegas. He's a stat sheet stuffer. Connor Murphy on Chicago as well. And then Alexander Romanov, another guy on the Islanders who I'd potentially pick up over Owen Power right now.
It's hard to argue. In Dynasty, he's almost like a buy low. This is actually a good time in Dynasty if you're looking to acquire Owen Power. But in seasonal leagues, it is getting hard because, as you mentioned, Buffalo's not playing that poorly to start the year. The goaltending's been fine. Anderson's been good. Comrie's been good. But it's hard to justify keeping Power. And this was someone who was high up in the Calder odds to begin the year as well. Someone who was going to push for Rookie of the Year. We just haven't seen it. So in season-long leagues, you're looking maybe for another stat stuff for a Mario Ferraro type or a Dmitry Kulikov, who I streamed in one league this week because the Ducks play 4 games, and he's playing on the top line with Klingberg with Drysdale out. So it's hard to keep Power in a season-long league, but in Dynasty, definitely a good trade target right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. And, we've seen these defensemen who are drafted really early kind of take a little bit of time. Cale Makar, obviously an exception, but Rasmus Dahlin, perfect example. He's really starting to get going this year, but this is the best production we've seen since his 4 or 5 years in the league. But let's move on to a guy that we're looking to add right now. Steve, I know you're looking at a goaltender. I was looking at his stats surprisingly before the show. He's been much better than I thought he was. He was good, but he's been stellar this year.
Yeah, Adin Hill. This is a guy who's rostered, when I checked this morning, 19% of Yahoo leagues. And that's just too low. I've bought into the no goalie drafting idea and strategy, and Adin Hill's been a staple on my team. If you look at the way the Golden Knights have split the starts between Hill and Logan Thompson, a former OUA athlete like yourself, Ryan, Logan Thompson has started 6 games and Adin Hill has started 4. So it's been a pretty even split, and the numbers don't lie. 4-0-0. 1.72 goals against average, 940 save percentage, 1.7 goals saved above expected. He's been really good. And this is a Golden Knights team that is allowing the 3rd fewest high danger chances against this year. Their defense has been phenomenal. If you watch them play, they're a very hard team to move the puck around in the defensive zone. They've got long rangey guys like McNabb, who you mentioned, Pietrangelo, White Cloud. They're hard to move the puck against. And I don't see that changing anytime soon under Bruce Cassidy, who's done a good job there as head coach. So Adin Hill, if you're one of these teams like mine who's going no goalie or zero goalie, look at Adin Hill. He's definitely worth some consideration.
Yeah, 100%. I actually just earlier today, I'm done. Some guy you could honestly drop. Oh, this is a bonus pick for everyone. Spencer Knight, get him off your team. He's shit. I'm done with him, Steve. I can't deal with it. So I was looking at Adin Hill. Actually, Vitek Vanacek was on my waiver wire as well, and I'm really high on the Devils. But I love Adin Hill. I totally agree. The door's wide open for him. Obviously, Logan Thompson's there, but Brossois, I'm pretty sure, is out for a solid amount of time or on LTIR, along with Robin Leonard as well. So these 2 guys really were probably going to ham and egg it the whole year. And if Adin Hill starts to play a little bit better, he might end up getting a little bit of starts. But both goalies obviously have been great to start this year. My must add this week is very deep, but this is someone that I think for the next month or so can be really, really valuable to your team. He's 1% rostered in Yahoo and ESPN leagues, and it's Caleb Jones. So Seth Jones actually just got hurt, and that's his brother. Also plays on Chicago, much better known than Caleb, but he just got hurt and he's out for about a month with a hand injury. I think it was thumb injury, and his brother will pretty much almost take over his entire role at this point. He might be as skilled, but he's going to take over the number 1 spot on the power play on the point, which is huge for a guy who averaged almost a point per game in junior in the WHL. And looking at his current numbers is very encouraging as well. He's a point per game over his last 4 contests. His ice time has really increased in the last 5 games as well, playing over 20 minutes, except for just 1. He's an offensive defenseman as well. You can see in the numbers. 11% of his shifts start in the offensive end, which is second highest among defensemen on his team, apart from his brother. And obviously there's a lot of faith in him at this point, considering his small sample size this year. He's only played 7 games. And his points per 60 minutes leads all defensemen on his team as well. It's 2.36. That's very high compared to if you're looking at Owen Power, he was below 1. Again, he has 9 shots on goal through 7 games, which is second on his team to defenseman, only behind his brother. And his on-ice goals percentage is 62.5, which is very high. So obviously there's a lot of offensive chances being created on the ice. And I think the Chicago team is going to continue to have to kind of push the offensive zone, especially with their defensemen, if they're going to want to compete in games, because they're allowing a decent amount of goals. But right now they're playing pretty solid and they are scoring a lot of goals. So Caleb Jones right now, if you need a defenseman, even to maybe make up for Seth Jones, there definitely are some other ones on the waiver wire, but a guy that really I think will be valuable over the next month or so.
That's a good call, because that Blackhawks defensive depth chart is extremely thin. Like if Caleb Jones goes down, it might be you or me logging middle pairing minutes on Chicago. So I like that call because it's an easy depth chart for him to climb, and he'll get those opportunities, which is what you're looking for in fantasy hockey. So good call there with Caleb Jones. Yeah,
there's some other guys too, like Connor Murphy on this Chicago defensive core as well. But I just think Jones adds that offensive compartment that maybe some of these other guys do not. So that's 2 must-adds, 2 must-drops from us this week. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Steve, really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm sure we'll have you back on again. It was great. It was great chatting it up because we haven't been able to talk hockey yet this year. So thanks again, Steve, for coming on, and Cherry Pickin following. We'll see you guys next time.